Oh, you fly a lot?
Like as a passenger?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I fly normal, like planes, like everyone.
So you're concerned about airline safety?
Well, I don't want to die.
Comedian Nathan Fielder just gave one of the funniest interviews I have seen on cable TV, maybe ever. He went on air to talk about his show, The Rehearsal, and the problem that he has identified around airline safety. And during this interview, Fielder revealed that one of the biggest stunts in the show could have been a tragedy, so stick around for that. Now, if you haven't seen the show before, it's on HBO or Max. The premise of the show is that through his independent research, he identified that the lack of communication between the pilot and the co-pilot has led to preventable airline disasters. And the way he made this point during the interview was creating an uncomfortable situation for Wolf Blitzer and his co-host, Pamela Brown.
I'm sure, Pamela, you don't say some things to Wolf, or because you're between you two, who would be like the boss or the more, like you're Wolf Blitzer, right? So you're like, your name is first on the thing. So I'm sure, Pamela, at times you might not want to say, you know, oh, Wolf wants to do something, you don't think it's a good idea. You might not want to express that always.
She's very blunt.
We actually have a pretty, I understand your
But
point.
you have to say that now.
No.
I know, but you don't want to say to Wolf, you can't, you know, as a journalist, you don't want to say, oh, I don't want to.
She says that.
She says it to you.
Yeah.
So maybe you're afraid to say something.
Here's the great thing about Wolf is
I'm
he
very
doesn't have
blunt
an
with her,
ego.
too.
Okay.
He has no ego, but I take your point that like.
I mean, Wolf's in movies and stuff.
He's a big deal.
He's
There
Mission
is
Impossible.
no question.
So that's intimidating. That can be intimidating.
That can be intimidating.
That's sort of the thing we're trying to explore a little bit.
Now, if you haven't seen the show, I won't spoil some of the bits, but it does culminate in a ridiculous stunt with him flying a 737. To do that, he had to go through rigorous training, and the FAA even responded to some of the claims he makes in the show, and this is how he reacted.
We reached out to the FAA to see what it had to say about all of this, and it told us that it mandates all airline pilots and crew members to complete interpersonal communication training, and it says it isn't seeing the data that supports the show's central claim that pilot communications is to blame for airline disasters.
Well,
so I want to get you to respond to that, obviously.
That's dumb. They're dumb. And here's the issue, is that they do, like I trained to be a pilot, and I'm a 737 pilot. I went through the training. The training is someone shows you a PowerPoint slide saying, if you are a co-pilot and the captain does something wrong, you need to speak up about it. That's all. That's the training. And they talk about some crashes that happened, but they don't do anything that makes it stick emotionally.
Also, there are so many moments in this interview that absolutely kill me. But my absolute favorite part was when he was describing flying the 737 and called it the miracle over the Mojave, where he saved 150 lives.
That's what, I was hoping to demonstrate with the miracle over the Mojave, which is the flight that I flew in the show to show communication between pilots, that people can see that two pilots trying their best to communicate, it's still a struggle. And fortunately, in that flight, nothing else critical happened. So I think when the communication lines up with a real potential emergency, that's when it could make all the difference. And so, fortunately, I landed the plane safely and saved 150 lives that day. And so I think the hope is that the FAA will look at this stuff and the miracle over the Mojave and be like, yeah.
Now, at the same time, while Nathan Fielder, a comedian, is creating a national conversation around airline safety, it's impossible to ignore the problem of airline safety created by the Trump administration. Thanks to Elon Musk and Doge, over 400 people were laid off at the FAA. You might remember there was a tragic fatal crash between an Army Black Hawk helicopter and a commercial airliner at Reagan National Airport. How did the Trump administration respond? By blaming DEI.
Third office, they put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program. Called the Federal Aviation Administration. This was before I got to office. Recently, second term. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine?
Now, of course, we know that's ridiculous, but instead of taking responsibility, they tried to shift the blame. Now we're finally starting to see the FAA admit there is a problem created by the administration. Sean Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation, is offering air traffic controllers a 20% bonus if they stay in their position. While that helps keep staffing levels at bay, they need more. But will they do that? No, they're going to turn to AI. But back to the Nathan Fielder interview, there were actors on that plane, around 150 of them. And during the interview, he revealed something catastrophic could have happened.
There was a flock of birds right here.
Oh, yes.
And this is like
so
what
this
you would
is
train?
Our still photographer captured this. And this is a flock of birds, and we narrowly, I guess, missed this. I didn't realize when we were flying, but once we got on the ground and I saw the photo, and you can see it in the show too, yeah, we narrowly missed the flock of birds, and if birds get in the engines, that could shut down the engines.
We know what happened with Sully. Good thing you practiced that.
And cause a real emergency. Well, exactly. But also, it shows why communication is important, because if that did happen, like, you know, we landed the plane with the Miracle on the Mojave safely and all that, but if the birds hit our engines and we actually had an emergency, communication could make the difference between getting down safely or not, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes all the difference.
We should all be thankful for Nathan Fielder's service, both in terms of making us laugh, but also highlighting a very important issue. And we will all remember where we were on the day we witnessed the miracle over the Mojave. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Can't thank you enough.